The world of 1984, imagined by George Orwell, was a dystopian world where totalitarianism ruled supreme. It was made of three superstates: Oceania, consisting of Lower Africa, Australia, the British Isles, and all of the Americas; Eurasia, consisting of all the former Soviet territories and mainland Europe; and East Asia, consisting of Mongolia, China, and Japan, along with a large unclaimed land which consisted of India, North Africa, Arabia, and Southeast Asia. This area is constantly fought over and switched between the three powers. The book brilliantly imagines totalitarian states where government power rules supreme, and the people are kept under constant 24/7 surveillance. Despite it being written in 1948, it's impressive how well the book is written. It's a fantastic book that I would recommend you read. Let's start by describing the superstate where the book takes place. Oceania. It's a large superstate made of the Americas, Lower Africa, and the British Isles. Next is Eurasia. It consists of all the former Soviet territories and Europe, with the exception of the British Isles, of course. It was formed after World War II, when the USSR and the Allied powers went to war, and the USSR conquered all of Europe as they pushed the Allies out, creating Eurasia. It's unknown exactly what the areas under its control are called. Next is East Asia. It consists of Mongolia, China, and Japan. Its formation occurred shortly after Oceania and Eurasia was created. Its creation resulted from a series of civil wars until these countries united. It's also unknown what the names of the areas under its control are called. These three powers, however, constantly engage in wars to gain control of a large unclaimed territory that rests in Asia, which is made of India, Arabia, Upper Africa, and Southeast Asia. This area is an independent and often is occupied by one state or the other, and its resources exploited. As you'll find out, this area is a hotspot of constant war and short-term occupations. Together, this is what the world of 1984 looks like. While not much is known about how it came to be, we do know that a nuclear war took place shortly after World War II, which gave birth to these mega-states. It's an interesting geographic display, and serves as the foundation on which this dystopian world is built. Next we go into the politics of this world. The first on the list is Oceania. Its ruler is a mysterious figure called Big Brother, and the ruling party is called Ingsoc. Ingsoc is a totalitarian party which gained power after a revolution that took place likely in the 1940s to the late 50s. Ingsoc rules with absolute power, and divides its subjects into three groups: the elite known as the inner party, the middle class known as the outer party, and the lower class known as the proles. Although it claims to practice equality, it doesn't really, and rules by a hierarchical structure. Ingsoc is short for English socialism. Despite its name, it isn't actually socialist. It hates socialism, at the same time doing things in the name of socialism. The party establishes total control of the mind, forcing its subjects to accept contradictions as fact or logic. Ingsoc also claims it has no laws, but consequences for actions. Some crimes have lesser consequences than others. The highest crime are those committed against the party. Even when it's not committed, the party is so serious and paranoid that it might as well have been. Of the crimes that exist, the highest are thought crimes. These crimes involve thinking things that the party does not want to be thought of. If caught, punishments can be severe. It's the highest form of crime. Things such as murder and rape are petty crimes to the party and largely have lesser consequences. Thought crimes, however, are the most serious. If caught, which is almost certain, punishments can involve torture, beatings, and death. Death, however, is not in the traditional sense. The party does not want a person to die, since killing a person only kills them and not the idea, which could live on to more, but instead it tortures people both physically and mentally to remove whatever hatred or thought they may have. The party destroys a person and reprograms them to accept contradictions or ideas, after which the person is killed. This ensures whatever idea or thought the person may have is forgotten with them, and does not live on. The party's goal is to destroy any idea that threatens its existence, no matter how small or insignificant it may be, even on an individual level. The party's goal is to ensure its survival, and gain as much power as possible. It's ready to do anything to gain it, no matter how brutal or evil. It destroys anything that can be a threat to its quest for absolute power. It doesn't care about humanity or the future, only power. And now the economics of 1984. The economy of these superstates are simple: destroy overproduction of labor and keep the population in the brink of starvation. Overproduction leads to welfare and reduction of the need for things that previously were attained through work. This creates more leisure time. So this destruction of overproduction prevents welfare and keeps the people busy and working, so they have less time to think about the world around them. The most effective way to do this is through war. War ensures that overproduction of industry is destroyed beyond what is necessary to keep the people in line. This keeps the people working and busy, almost at the edge of starvation. A war creates a mentality of danger. This mentality helps the government drive the people's fear onto whomever it desires. This also helps the government blame its problems on its enemies or traitors. It can be East Asia or Eurasia, essentially creating war hysteria. The superstates fight over the unclaimed land mentioned previously. This area is constantly taken over and switched between the three superstates, and this population exploited through back-breaking labor, sometimes to the death, and then disposed of. The labor from this region is not a part of the economy of these superstates, and most things produced here are for war. The people of this area are essentially slaves who work for their own deaths. Switching hands to them means being under different masters and being treated the same, so to them it doesn't really matter who controls them. This is how the economies function, and it's pretty much the same for all the other superstates. Essentially, it's a cycle of war and labor to keep the people occupied and limited, physically and mentally. The world imagined by Orwell is very interesting to say the least. The superstate's geography, politics, and economics are very compelling. The continuous cycle of war and manipulation with government surveillance offers a horrifying glance at our own reality. 1984 is almost a foreshadowing of what could happen if we give up our liberties for equality. It almost serves as a warning to future generations. Despite it being written 70 years ago, 1984 remains to be one of the greatest dystopian books ever written. I cannot recommend it enough.